Madison, welcome to Gruen. We'll get to our panel in a moment. But first, why does every ad have someone talking while walking? This guy from AGL is on the move.
Let's be honest, things need to change. So at AGL, we are getting out of coal.
AGL are so committed to reducing emissions, they forced him to walk home. He walks and talks over highways. He walks and talks through the cinema. He even walks and talks up mountains.
As one of the biggest energy companies, we can create the biggest change. So, you with us?
I'm trying to be with you, but you keep walking away. You walked all the way to Perth.
Here we are in WA with AGL Gas. I know it's taken us a little while to get here.
If you wanted to get there faster, maybe you shouldn't have walked. AGL is not the only one. The NBN is walking all the way from the node.
NBN is building Australia's new broadband access network.
Still faster than the NBN. And this guy is walking through Crown Casino. By the way, if you can freeze time at a casino, cheat. Actually, just steal stuff. But always steal responsibly. The more we looked at it, the more it seemed that everyone was walking everywhere. Where are you all going? Are you heading for better ads? Some brands can't even decide who should be walking.
Choose Harcourts as your property manager and we'll look after it like it was ours.
It's like The Walking Dead, but it's even scarier because they're real estate agents. The Queensland University of Technology even tried talking and jogging.
In my job, you can work pretty much anywhere in the world.
But that didn't work out too well.
Let's eat for the real world.
Frankly, you'd need to be a complete goose to do a walk and talk, which explains this ad from Air New Zealand.
G'day. I know what you're thinking. Why is that bird boarding an Air New Zealand flight to Los Angeles?
Hey, here's what I'm thinking. I've seen Top Gun, and you don't want to be on a plane with a goose. What, too soon? Time to welcome our panel from PwC, Russell Howcroft, and from PWT, person with T-shirt, Todd Sampson. Joining them from Cummins and Partners, Lucy Cochrane, and from TBWA, Kimberly Wells. Wine. Australians consumed 550 million litres of it in the past year. Our wine industry is now worth $6.2 billion. Here's a brand new ad from one of the major players with a voiceover from a Hemsworth. The good one.
They say Jacob's Creek double-barrel her soul. And a soul is only as strong as the struggle it faces. Australian wilds. From northern moors, a journey to the end of the earth. See, anything that grows a story. Passion's a spark, and while that flame chars, it also creates. Getting home takes many hands. Just as much hope. Two barrels began this journey. One soul returned. Jacob's Creek double barrel, finished and aged to whiskey barrels. Richer, deeper, smoother.
OK, for starters, they really need a more efficient way to source barrels. That ad doesn't make any more sense if you're drunk. I've done the research. There's a Time Lord who doesn't age. He travels from Scotland to South Australia with a barrel, and he's going to be pretty pissed off when he turns up to find she's already got a whole room full of barrels. Lucy, what the hell is going on?
I think that red wine's all about character. And there's nothing says character or strength of character like a really intense backstory, and that's obviously a really intense backstory, and they're sort of personifying the wine. If you imagine if you knew that guy and he rocked up to your house, you would probably describe him, if he's gone through all of that adversity and over the seas, because we love people that overcome adversity, we would describe him as being really complicated and mysterious and interesting and deep, and that's exactly how they want you to describe their Shiraz.
Yeah, I think they spent all their money on voice and none on comprehension. I think it's a clever choice to get Chris. He's become the kind of modern Australian voice. And the thing with buying voice is you probably pay 25% of what it would cost to get him. So you pay a couple $100,000 for his voice, but you'd pay a couple of million to have Chris actually in the ad. So it's quite a clever use of a distinct voice.
The ad is obsessed with barrels.
They say Jacob's Creek double barrel has soul.
They say Jacob's Creek double barrel has soul. No, they don't. I Googled it, and the only use of that phrase is in your ad. Kimberly, does any normal person care about barrels?
I think if you asked them outright, they would probably say they're purchasing based on occasion or based on price, possibly in the moment. But yeah, they do care because the barrels create a visual shorthand for a whole range of other attributes. So they tell a story on provenance. They tell a story on craftsmanship. They tell a story on flavour. They tell a story on quality. So the barrel is used as a technique to shorthand and shortcut a whole, you know, a much larger conversation.
It's a little bit of a side fact, but I did some research in this area and I found that just men loved Scotland. Like, they were just mad for it. They loved the ruggedness and the wildness of it, and they just, yeah, they really connected to it. So it makes sense that they have, you know, told that story.
The kilts.
They didn't mention the kilts, but I think they get a bit Braveheart, like they get the inner Braveheart out or something, but yeah.
You can take my life, but you cannot take my Shiraz. Personally, when I see a weirdo rolling a barrel through South Australia, I think of something completely different. But Jacob's Creek isn't exactly a high-end drop. The bottle of wine in that ad costs $18. Russell, why does it need such a high-budget ad?
Well, they're in the mass premium business with a piece of advertising like this. I mean, $18 actually isn't cheap. There's lots of wine that's a lot cheaper, but equally there's a ton of wine that's more expensive. The fact that they're on the television means that they're in the mass business. And then what they then do, because the trick here is that they've spent a lot of money in the production of that commercial. So that gives you the sense of premium. And $18 on a mass scale makes a lot of money.
But I would argue this ad is not about that specific wine. Whilst it's badged that, it's actually a brand ad for Jacob's Creek. So when you front shelf and you see, there's 52 varieties, I think, in the kind of whole Jacob's Creek range. So when you're at shelf and you're looking across the gamut, you've built a memory structure around the premiumness and the quality that allows you to kind of move up and down the price scale based on whatever your selection is.
And it is interesting, isn't it, that TV, you know, it wasn't particularly normal to use television to advertise for wines, yeah, because you were seen to be mass and you didn't really want to be mass. You wanted to give the impression that you were more, you know, was more selective. So I think that's a very interesting, you know, trend which we're talking about now, right?
That is why we're talking about it now, Russell.
Yeah, I got it.
It's almost like this show is about noticing interesting trends in advertising.
Oh yeah.
And then talking about them on television.
Oh dear.
Russell's just woken up from a coma and realised what show he's on. Bottle shops are confusing places. Around 6,000 different wines are sold in large stores. For all that apparent choice, it turns out 4 big companies own 40% of the Australian market. Wolf Blass is a big label run by one of those big companies, Treasury Wine Estate. Here's its latest ad with an even bigger voiceover.
Triumph doesn't just happen. It comes about because we, as humans, choose to pursue it, regardless of risk or rules or boundaries, because we choose to listen to the voice inside of us that says, chase it. Without the chase, everything man has ever done would not have been done as well, as good at all. So when the call comes to chase something, listen to it. Ignore the comfort zone. It never climbed a mountain. It never created a damn thing. Chase boldly. And when you do, raise a glass to yourself. Because you, sir or madam, are alive.
Here's to the chase. Wolves Blast.
And if you do any of those things while drunk, you, sir or madam, will be dead. A business meeting, complex mathematics, mountain climbing, all things you don't want to mix with alcohol. Todd, you've climbed Everest. What does it have to do with wine?
I certainly didn't do it on this drink, that's for sure. In the business, they say when it comes to alcohol advertising, you drink the image, because most of the things are added to it. And in this case, it's association, and it's association with success and achievement. So they're trying to use the strategy of association with all these clever people to the product. I don't think it works. I don't like it at all.
From Everest to the vineyard, here's another spot from Jacobs Creek.
Jacobs Creek. We're made by here. This valley with all its charms and challenges. Made by the sun that makes or breaks our hearts. By early starts, late night obsessions, and wild ideas. Made by over 160 years of doing what we love. Birthed from the land, shaped by the people, inspired by the continent, made by Australia. Jacobs Creek, made true.
Inspired by the continent, made by Australia, drunk when there's nothing else available. And apparently the continent has 9 men and no women. Kimberly, who is this ad aimed at?
Well, I think it's really targeting Middle Australia. So when we think about the uneducated palate, of which the majority of us have, when it comes to true wine tasting, that's exactly what this ad is doing. It's out there saying, we are born of this land, we are made by Australian farmers, we're good quality, we're a drink, so drink us. And I think this, to me, is the VB of Australian wine.
Yeah.
This is kind of like you expect the farmer almost to come out in the middle of the street with this sort of Lone Ranger type soundtrack that's in the background. I think this is just a hard-working. It is what it is. There's no reference to nose or notes or swilling, and it kind of just democratises wine.
It is an interesting new expression of nationalism. It is wine taking over that nationalist, the flag waving. So I don't know that we've actually seen that very much, and it is really interesting. I mean, we are the 6th biggest producer of wine in the world. Our economy is 15th or 16th in the world. So we actually are very, very good at it, and we should be proud of it. So this is part of telling that story.
I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because there's nothing that Aussies love more than a wine. So
you'd already see the sameness of the category. You could swap the names around, and they're all using the same symbolism: the earth, always showing red. It's all barrels. It's earthy and browns and oak, and it's all exactly the same. That's one of the challenges in this category, is that to stand out, you have to do something different, but they're too scared to stand out because they will alienate the drinkers that they currently have, which tend to be sort of upper middle, especially for the more expensive. So there's a whole younger generation. They're still drinking, but there's a whole younger generation that's not being catered to.
It's a really interesting tension, isn't it, around the wine industry to differentiate or just to promote the category. I mean, so they're all choosing, in fact, as you say, just to use the same imagery, and that in turn promotes the category. And then the choice gets made when you actually get to the bottle shop.
Yeah, Todd actually mentioned something really interesting. They always show red wine in these ads, even though Australians drink more white wine than red wine.
Yeah.
They always show red wine.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think there's a couple of reasons. One is I think it's if you think of red and white as brands, red is the better brand because it's seen as being healthier. I mean, healthier to opium or something, but it's not healthier, but it's seen
red wine. We're healthier than opium.
But so So I think of the two, it's seen as the healthier one, but also it's the more visually interesting one. It matches the whole color palette that wine ads tend to have, which are this kind of reds and the browns. So I think it does both of those things.
And what about this moment? I don't want to see anyone manhandling my grapes. Russell, you once manhandled my grapes. No. Russell, why show this in the ad?
I actually love that shot because there is something about red wine that nature gave us wine, and we thank nature every day, and I think that's why it's so popular. That's why people enjoy it, because they just do feel that it's from the earth. Without really knowing anything about wine, you just sort of feel like, you just pick the grapes and squeeze it and stick it in a bottle and look what happens when you drink it, right? So you thank nature every day.
If you keep in mind that we're drinking the image that the advertising is creating, and that the reality of the product, not for all but for most, is it's industrialized. It's chemists, lab coats, tanks, vats. So this ad is, in some ways, it's a misdirection or kind of a branding cover-up of the reality. And you notice that they're no longer using, because the research has now shown that the stomping on the grapes is just too disgusting for most people. So now the equivalent of that is the crushing of the grapes. They never do that. They used to do the stomping traditionally. So they romanticize it or create a brand image in your mind, because they really don't want the real image in your mind, which it's industrialized in vats, and you'll pay less for that.
Because the image has got to be passion. Yes, because in the end, red is passion, and red wine is passion. And what happens as a result of drinking it can lead to passion. I
feel like we're learning more about you than the category. Let's talk about the labels. Wine brands love words like dog, stone, yard, cloud, and hill. There are plenty of hand-drawn pictures, but I'm yet to see a wine font in Comic Sans. Lucy, are there rules for wine label design?
Well, they're really important. They're sometimes described as being the wine's billboard in a shop, because they have that 2 to 6 second impression to make, and there's just so many and not all of the labels can afford to advertise. And there are some rules. So the hand-drawn is all about giving that impression that it's not made in a vat and that it's all, handcrafted, when the truth is it's probably some massive corporate that owns it.
Yeah, the label is the last ad in the process. And the general rule with the labels is make it look more expensive than it is. That's one general rule. And the other way to do that is minimalism. So, like Penfolds is one word, and white. So the less you use often symbolizes it being more expensive or a better wine. Now, that is changing as people start to appeal to the millennials. They're making it a little bit more colourful, still trying to be as minimalist as they can, but making it a bit more colourful so it's attractive.
You're right that the label is the last ad that you have for the wine, which is why it's always intrigued me that the advertising itself isn't the label. Wouldn't you, if you're in the wine business, wouldn't you just make advertising which was just a total reflection of what was on the label? So when I get to the bottle shop, I've seen the advertising, which is the label that makes me buy the wine. It strikes me as being so obvious. Why hasn't someone done that?
But why doesn't someone do that across any packaged good?
They should.
The other thing you see a lot of on wine bottles is medals, which are so ubiquitous, they seem more like participation prizes. Todd, why does every wine want to win a gold medal?
Again, consensus is a very powerful persuasion tool. So for a lot of people, the choice of wine is a high-risk situation. If you're buying it for yourself, that's fine. But if you're buying it at a dinner with other people, it says a lot about you. If you're buying something that you're going to pull out in front of other people, so people want to minimize risk as much as possible. So one way to do that, because people trust people more than they trust brands, is if other people independently, supposedly, have endorsed it, which are the awards. But I have yet to meet someone who actually looks at what the award could be 9th place. I mean, they don't look at the awards, but they feel enough confidence from the award itself and from it being put on a label, which you then assume they did win something, they feel enough confidence for that to make a low-risk decision. So these awards are really, really powerful, not just for in this category, but for movies or for cars. I mean, to win the awards, you always see them stamped on because it's just confirmation from other people that it's a good choice.
It's important to remember that awards are an industry themselves. So you as a wine have got to pay money to enter into the awards program. And that's why there are lots of awards given, because there's lots of programs, because there's a big business to have an awards business. 7,700 awards were given out in the wine industry last year.
The other thing with medals is what you'll notice is they're on cheaper bottles of wine. You won't see like a really fancy bottle of wine with 1 million medals put on it, and they really use it for to give people permission to feel okay about buying those cheaper bottles of wine. And I mean, when I shop for wine, if I see one with loads of medals on it, I just think you're like too insecure and needy. I just
Plenty of us pretend to know more about wine than we do. One study showed people were as skilled at guessing wine price as the outcome of a coin toss. Lucy, how much does price factor into our buying decisions?
It's really big in wine. People are really intimidated by buying wine, and people that don't have confidence will use price as a way to measure quality. The irony is it's probably not the best way to measure it. Blind taste tests show that people actually really enjoy cheap wine, but people, especially in a social situation, avoiding embarrassments are really motivating. So if it's a social situation, people just tend to buy something expensive, and they're just basically trying to avoid bringing a bottle of shame to a dinner party.
I do a lot of blind taste tests, and then I do some very blind taste tests.
There's plenty of science here around this that says that the pleasure centers in your brain light up more when you think it's more expensive. But the interesting thing about that is that it doesn't actually have to be more expensive. So if you're tricked into believing it's more expensive with a cheaper wine, your pleasure centers go off with a $5 bottle of wine that you think is $80. It goes off the same. So price really does make a difference in terms of how you physiologically react to the wine.
Yeah. All marketing in the end is about price. Yeah, so everything that you do, no matter the category, leads to the final moment when you've got to get someone's money out of their wallet. So ultimately, price is the final determinant.
I mean, it's sad to think that it tastes better because it's more expensive. And that's the only reason. It just shows, like, when people are wine snobs, the thing that gets me about wine snobbery is that we know it's bullshit. Like, we know that they've been duped by advertising because you have to be, because it's image that's been made up, and because the 5% that actually know something, they don't really know something.
Coles and Woolies own 60% of the retail wine market. Coles' parent company, Wesfarmers, runs Liquorland, Vintage Cellars and First Choice Liquor. Woolworths operates BWS, Cellar Masters and heavy hitter Dan Murphy's, a chain that accounted for nearly 30% of Australia's alcohol sales last year, and about 30% of my grocery purchases. Here's its latest ad.
One man built his reputation on a handshake. He made a promise that no matter who you were or what you'd like to drink, he'd have that drink at the lowest price. That was Dan Murphy's promise. And it always will be.
Can't believe he walked all that way and didn't even bring a barrel. Much like that ad, the corporation is probably owned by a faceless man. But who was the real Dan Murphy? Possibly a distant relative of Bob Jane. One boutique-looking wine on Dan Murphy's shelves is Cat Amongst the Pigeons. If you head to the website for Cat Amongst the Pigeons, there's no cellar door address. That's because it's owned by Pinnacle Drinks, which is owned by Endeavour Drinks Group, which is owned by Woolworths. It's like entering a cellar and falling down a trapdoor, another trapdoor, and finding yourself at the self-service checkout. Kimberly, why not just badge it Woolies wine?
Well, would you buy Woolies wine? I mean, we've
yes,
just been
I would.
Clearly no fear of wine shame.
No, I drink alone.
You've got brand consideration within the portfolio. So Woolies, family grocery store, their advertising is fresh food people, there are children all the time. To have an ad come out that is talking explicitly to Woolies wine and have people consuming alcohol may not fit within the key kind of values and certainly the tone of voice that Woolies master brand operates in. It's actually no different to what they've done across the grocery category.
So Woolies and Coles dominate liquor, full stop, and they dominate wine. So they have, Woolies alone has 200 private label brands. None of them with overt association to Woolies. Because heritage is still important in wine and origin. And, you know, down estate is not as good as, you know, Beaumont estate. So they're not going to play that game because the thing with the margins they make...
I've had a few wines where I've fallen down.
The thing is, the margin, they make double the margin on private label than they do on branded products. So, and they uniquely control the whole marketing mix. So they control shelf space. So they can they can do all the tricks that are on a menu, you know, for pricing, they can do within their shelf. So they want to sell, and this is one of the biggest concerns everyone, you know, the winemakers have, is they want to sell 25% of all wine purchased in supermarket is private label. And most people wouldn't really know it's private label.
We also export a lot of Australian wine, a market that has grown 13% in the past year. In January, the first wine brand to air a US Super Bowl ad in over 40 years happened to be Aussie. Oh, makes me proud.
This is a kangaroo. If you see a road at a party, it's a good party. Because at Yellowtail, we believe in fun. We believe if your wine needs to breathe, you should take it outside for some fresh air. We believe in Ellie Gonzalez. Hi.
Hey.
Want to pet my Roo?
Sure, I'll pet your Roo.
And finally, we believe in this. That's Yellowtail.
Oh my God, I am so sorry. That is racist. We should not have played that. Not all Australians have kangaroo best friends. Wait until my koala hears about this. And by the way, kangaroos are beer drinkers. They love hops. Thank you. I'd like to thank the Academy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yellowtail is Australia's top-selling exported wine. The US campaign showed a Roo wearing sunglasses. China is the biggest consumer of Aussie wine, and its Yellowtail ads have tacky sunnies too. Todd, are we a lot less sophisticated than we like to think?
That is one of few ads where I lost the will to live when I saw it. This is an ad made by Americans aimed at millennials. And there is often, I worked with Australian tourism for a long period of time, there is often a kind of dichotomy or a conflict between how we see ourselves and what actually sells things overseas. So we see ourselves as a sophisticated, clever, creative, down-to-earth country. But what still sells in America in a lot of countries are Roos, Paul Hogan, Shrimp on the Barbie, and, you know, that's what gets packaged up. So, but this ad tries to do that, but does even that badly.
Yeah, but it's an awesome bit of mass marketing, isn't it? You know, I mean, seriously. Yeah, no.
Definitely not.
It's got a dead stuffed kangaroo cooking dead animals on a beach.
Russell, for my own sanity, just please tell me you hate that one ad.
Or that piece of advertising there. No, it's absolute garbage. But
Yes! Yes!
Wine brands take drinking seriously, certainly more seriously than the drink responsibly disclaimers in their ads. Wolf Blass uses tiny, tiny font. Try not to be distracted by our giant gold eagle. Jacobs Creek has the message vaporising into the clouds, and this boxed wine has a warning about pouring volume right below an offer for 10% more wine. It's taking the piss, which is why we thought we'd pour the grandiose voiceovers down the sink and revisit a tune from last week's show, the most upbeat RBT jingle of all time.
How will you go when you sit for the test? How will you go when you sit for the test? How will you go when you sit for the test? Will you be under 05 or under arrest? How will you go when you sit for the test? Will you be under 05 or under arrest? How will you go when you sit for the test? Will you be under 05 or under arrest?
Killing two birds with one stone. Incidentally, the perfect name for a bottle of boutique wine. And now, the pitch. Our weekly stock take sale where all impossible ideas must go. Everyone wants to think of the children. Tonight, we're thinking of the adults. Yet we've asked our agencies to convince Australians not to have kids. It's like the Bonds baby contest without the babies. Can they do it? Please welcome from Fenton Stevens, Jess Wheeler, and from likeable Malcolm McLean. Jess, what was the moment of conception?
We wanted potential parents to consider what they're really bringing into the world.
Let's have a look.
Do you want to make a baby? Should we change the atmosphere a little?
Atmosphere? Let's make it steamy.
Mm-hmm.
Fill it with carbon emissions.
Okay. Can we destroy some rainforests?
Mass extinction style.
Oh, wow, it's hot.
Yeah, you're damn right it's hot. 2 to 3 degrees hotter.
Time's up there. Boil the oceans, baby.
Oh, it's going to melt the ice caps and kill the polar bears.
Yes, baby. Fuck those polar bears.
Think about what you're really bringing into the world and stop fucking having kids.
Malcolm, how was your idea born?
Well, everyone loves a baby, but unfortunately, they grow up fast.
Let's have a look.
Just keep breathing. That's it. And we're going to go for one more big push. And push. It's a girl.
Hold her?
Can they hold you?
No.
Come on, can you give your mum a hug?
Oh, that's Rob.
Who's Rob?
Can I have some money?
Not until you've given your mum a hug.
My God, I wish I was never born.
When you have a baby, you'll have a teenager. Don't do it.
They grow up so fast, don't they?
All right. Two pretty compelling arguments this week, Russell, I think. Which one did you prefer?
I was excited about the environmental effects, but I'm going to go for number 2. And when the teenager says, I wish I was never born, fantastic insight. Great.
Kimberly?
I'm with number 2 as well, exactly the same. They do grow up and they hit the teenage years fast.
Lucy?
Yeah, I love them both, but it's number 2 by an inch.
OK, Todd, you have the deciding vote. You don't. It's 3.
I liked both of them, but I thought the first one was more entertaining for me, so I'm going for 1.
OK, well, it's number 2, but congratulations to you both. You both did a fantastic job. These days, talking like a pirate sounds like this. Arr! How do I get the latest Game of Thrones? 21% of Aussies have illegally downloaded something in the past month. Arr! To tackle this, the screen industry body in charge of piracy recently launched its biggest ever consumer campaign.
I need to talk to you about illegal downloading, because the game's changed. New laws have blocked all major pirate sites. And as for the rest, well, hell of a risk. Could end up with viruses, spyware, stolen credit card details, even identity theft. Seems like a high price to pay after all. Or you could just spend a few bucks, see it on the big screen, high quality DVD, pay TV or online. Choice is yours. Good luck.
We actually illegally downloaded that ad. In your face, Brian. That campaign has stolen its look from a noir film. Brian Brown shuffles around meanly with his hands in his pockets. Half of his face is lit, not the good half. Kimberly, in an ad about piracy, why make your spokesperson look like a criminal?
That spot and all of the executional cues that sit around it have been purposely done to slow the message down so they can land the seriousness. The black and white, the shadows, the voice without sound over the top. I think it aired in cinema. So when you think about everything that would bookend, lots of noise and effects and things like that coming in and coming out of it, that message to give the time and space and just a very strong Australian voice helps land the importance of the message.
Yeah, I think it's not just about making him look like a criminal, it's about making the viewer feel like a criminal. So given Australians are really good at illegally downloading, like you're likely to have illegally downloaded when you were viewing the ad, so you already have a sense of guilt. So when I watch that ad, I start feeling like I'm in a chair in a basement somewhere, and even though everything he's saying is really rational and saying, we're giving you a choice, all of the cues are saying, you're in trouble and I know where your family live.
Let's be honest, if Brian Brown is your favourite actor, you probably don't know how to illegally download a movie. Todd, why him?
Brian's a legend. He's just totally irrelevant for this ad. He's a total, there's no question about him being a, well-known and a legend in the field, but we are talking to a young 18 to 28 or 18 to 30 market. Down the lower end, they would have no idea who he is. So I think he's there because he's available. And I also think he's there because he genuinely cares. I think he genuinely cares about this, and he's trying to protect a lot of people because the victims are not the people we think. It's the people that work around productions, and I'm sure he's very sensitive to that. But what they should have chosen was some person that has influence in the online space, where people are actually doing it, so they could have a bigger, broader conversation. Because Brian, for all his, cleverness, he's not going to create a conversation with that ad, but they could have picked a massive influencer, and they could have created a conversation.
Yeah, you're really asking a lot of the viewer or the consumer. You have to sit there, you've got to watch it, you've got to, consume every single thing that he's saying, and so it's like, come on, give me a break. Give me something that I can take away from the advertising. You may even get away with entertaining people in this sort of advertising as well, right? There is options. There's options to be funny. There's options to be engaging. Why do I have to be lectured at?
In the past, piracy ads were about the morality of stealing. This campaign is all about malware. There's even an animated series, Meet the Malwares. Worst Meet the Fuckers spin-off ever. Stolen credit card details and viruses are all things you can get from any online transaction or, one-night stand. Lucy, malware or morality, which is the better strategy here?
Well, I think once upon a time there was a place to educate people that it was like stealing, but 72% of Australians do think it's stealing and they still do it. So the morality argument's obviously not working, and that's because of the fact that there's a sense that everyone is doing it, so there's no consequences. Like, well, if you're doing it, I might as well do it as well. So I do think the malwares is probably more powerful, and it's giving personal consequences to actually downloading. So I do like that it's got a bit of a, if you're promiscuous with your computer, then you're probably going to catch something virusy.
But I just think a generational thing. I think talking to a younger generation and basically saying to them is if you pirate or you go online, you're going to get a virus, is like saying to them, if you go outside when it's sunny, you're going to get a sunburn. They're like, well, yeah, I just wear sun lotions, they just download virus protection and they're good to go. And the morality issue, if you speak to a lot of younger people about it, they see the law as unjust. Like, they look at it and go, it's unjust that we actually have to pay. So there's going to be no morality argument. There is to an older generation, to a younger generation. I think the expectation is they should get content when they want. Most of it doesn't always have to be free, but they need it when they want, accessed how they want it, and they want it immediately.
Surprisingly, Australia's fastest growing group of online pirates is 12 to 13-year-olds. There's a campaign targeted at them too.
Hey guys, I'm Bindi Owen. Most people are not aware of just how many incredibly talented people are behind the scenes of the films and TV shows that we all love. Film piracy, which is basically just downloading or burning of films or TV shows without paying for them. This really affects all of these people and threatens their jobs and the future of the film and TV industry as we know it.
Ah, Bindi Owen, Brian Brown for kids. Russell, would kids really be persuaded by the idea of adults losing their jobs?
No, absolutely not. It's like... It's completely mad, really, isn't it? You know, and this, when Brian Brown says, I'll spend a few bucks, it's like, well, hang on a second. So what, going to the movies is obviously what he is saying. It's not inexpensive to go to the movies. In fact, it costs you twice as much to go to the movies in Australia as it does in the States. And when you go there, it's probably fair enough that you want to buy some popcorn. Well, that's going to cost you another $10. So just the pricing dynamic means you're going to try and find ways to do stuff that's not going to cost you any money.
Brian Brown's ad plays in cinemas, on Foxtel and free-to-air TV, all places you're preaching to the converted. So to make sure Brian's ad reaches the people who need to see it, we thought we'd put it on an illegal downloading site. The ABC lawyers did not like that idea. Luckily, it was already uploaded by someone else. Also on Pirate Bay, Brian Brown's movie, Cocktail. So now we know why he's so angry. And there's even, this is true, Gruen Season 10.
Yeah.
Which is impressive because this is only Season 9. I'm going to download that and take next year off. That's just about all for tonight. Please thank our panel, Russell, Kimberly, Lucy and Todd. Thank you very much. We'll leave you with another ad you couldn't make in 2017, our weekly celebration of cringe. Anti-piracy messages weren't always Brian Brown scowling at us about malware. We prefer the bright and colourful reality of 1992, when piracy ads had dancing flair and rap music with a rhyme scheme that has far outlasted the technology it references. We'll see you next week.
I brought a disc, and we could copy this, okay? And we can play it on my brother's computer.
Okay, no problem. All we gotta do is...
Whoa. Are you sure you know what you're doing?
Did I hear you right? Did I hear you saying that you're gonna make a copy of a game without paying? Come on, guys. I thought you knew better. Don't copy that floppy.
Wait a minute. Who the heck are you anyway?
Yeah, and what are you doing on our computer?
I'm your MC, double def. DP, that's the disc protector for you and the posse. That's the artists, writers, designers, and programmers that work up the images for games and grammar that let you learn, but also play the game you came here for today. That's why I'm here and what I'm fighting for. Don't copy that floppy. I'm out of here.